Hello, welcome to another episode of the Live Cost Construction Experience. Delighted to be joined by James Benson, who is the Director of Housing, Planning and Development for the CIF. James, I can't start with anything other than how are you in this situation? I suppose the best place to start with this.
Very good considering, Kieran. Different world, evolving world, but I suppose myself no more than anyone in the construction industry, we're well used to adapting and changing with the times based on what's thrown at us. So now more than ever, that's where our characteristics come to the fore, I think. So all good considering. Thanks.
Would you have to do much working from home, I suppose, before this?
No, and I had a nice solid routine where I would have left the house, avoided the hectic home life, and got away and got into work and got my business done and came home. So no, it's a new world. So it's all based out of the home office now. So joking with the stagings of the last number of days, they will be future advertising their homes as the old 4-bed will now be a 3-bed plus a home office, and that's the world we'll be in.
I suppose you're pretty new to the dressing from the waist up.
Yeah, well,
brigade.
Full attire here for the security of the listeners.
Yeah, that's it. I was only speaking to someone only yesterday about this, and I mentioned it on another podcast. And I really do wonder, have we inherited ways of working from a previous generation that we might be just outdated, and there might be some smart new ways to work that some people have just started to realise. And efficiency being one is, will we now look at meetings and say, can I put that online? Do I have to travel there for that meeting? Can I now push that online? It'll be interesting to see how this plays out over when we get back to some sort of normality, I suppose. James, for those who don't know, could you explain a little bit about the CIF, what you do and what your role is in a day-to-day in there?
Well, for those that aren't aware, the CIF, Construction Industry Federation, and that's broken up into different associations because you have different, obviously, subsectors in construction. And that will be anything from the associations that look after main contractors, specialist contractors, civils, that sort of thing. From my own respect, the IHBA looks after the Irish Home Builders Association, and we look at those that would be involved in the residential side of things, and that can be from small extensions, one-off builds, right up to the PLCs and the larger companies and everything in between. We'd represent members from throughout the country, so obviously we have a large eastern region and Dublin based membership, but that spreads across through the southern and eastern region and western regions as well. So all members equal across all fronts. So we have a very large representation, and part of our work is, one, to educate the member, two, let the member, I suppose, educate us. And a lot of the work we would do then in lobbying and their own representations when we have dealings with the department or the various government bodies. So we very much use the expertise from the members on the ground at the grassroots to educate where we need to go when we're going in and having these conversations. If we have a new legislation coming out or new regulations or new stimulus that might be needed at any time, and all the conversations that need to be had around housing.
And the value of something like that is going to become very, very apparent. I mean, I suppose before I jump into maybe the current situation, I mean, how were we doing? I suppose I had a look back in some of the stats, and it looked like first quarter of the year 2020, everything was going grand. We were actually on house prices actually rose, and that's despite Brexit. How are we tracking in relation to what the government set as a target, and how do you feel things were moving before this started?
If looking pre-COVID, I suppose the early parts of 2020, and it feels like a lifetime ago even at this stage, but it's only 3 months ago that we were in January in a fresh new year. And a new year sort of always brings enthusiasm on the housing front, because the way the market is set up, you have exemptions from the central banks that will come into play to allow an increased number of mortgages being purchased or secured that you mightn't have in the latter part of the year. But I suppose going back to your main point, tracking and figures wise, last year, 2019, finished up with just over 21,000 homes being completed. Now that was split again, and there's always difficulties around this because it is split into different markets. When you look at the figures, a quarter of that 21,000, so just over 5,000 homes were one-offs, so just individual builds, not necessarily those just within the industry, but those outside of the industry who want to build a house for themselves. you're looking at about 12,000 units, homes that were built in scheme developments, and apartment builds then, which are probably restricted in a lot of cases because of viability, which would be built through the funds, were developed in the Greater Dublin area. That was just under 4,000. So you make up those figures, just over 21,000. You take out those different elements. You take out the one-offs, you take out the apartments, you take out those units that were social units, the Part 5s, and the approved housing body units. Now, they still be delivered by the private market and the private industry, but they would be also done through lease and acquisition. Well, I suppose my point being, we finished off last year with, just of those 21,000, just 8,000 units would have been actually available on the private market. So that's quite a low figure even coming into this year. And as we know, and it was very poignant coming into the new year here, because we had the programme for government and the programme for works that we will see now in the next number of months. We need increase numbers across all tenure types. So affordable housing, social housing, private housing and long-term rental. All those revenue or all those tenure streams need to increase in delivery across all the spectrum, or we're going to have a continued housing crisis. And we do have a housing crisis at the moment. We have an emergency currently, a health emergency, and we will return back to the housing crisis when that dissipates over the next number of months.
And I suppose before all this would have kicked off, then what do you believe were the main challenges that the industry was facing?
Yeah, we're dealing with it, and unfortunately, they roll off the top of my tongue too easily, because we're dealing with them on a continuous basis. And if we look from where we came over the last number of years, they haven't changed dramatically, and that can be, I suppose, a point of success or failure. But what we're looking at is restriction on credit is key and foremost at that. And when I say restriction on credit, I mean, I suppose there's an affordability gap out there at the moment. So we'll see that amplified now over the next number of months because of our current situation. But before that, if you take average house prices and you take the cost of house prices, that cost to deliver a house, and you take someone's inability to secure a mortgage, or their ability to secure a mortgage, they are very restricted in what they can do and what they can afford. So if you take average house prices across the Greater Dublin area, you are looking at approximately 380,000. Now, what that meant, based on our current rules, as the general public, your house, your guards, your home payers, your nurses, they would have needed a combined income of in excess of 94,000, along with the Help to Buy and along with the deposit, to be able to secure a mortgage to get that average price. Outside of the Greater Dublin area, that went down to about 325, but it still meant the general public would have needed in excess of 80,000 combined income, and people just aren't in that position, or they weren't in that position to be able to get on and secure a mortgage. So if you can't secure a mortgage, there's not going to be enough units built to deliver those, because on the financial side of things, the development finance will be provided to house builders and developers based on the number of people that can actually, go and purchase a unit after it is built. So restriction on credit would have been first and foremost. And then planning guidelines. We've a very complex and a regulatory planning system within Ireland. We've a set of rules that we need to abide by. So whether someone's building a one-off house or 10 units or 50 units, and 50 units is substantial in today's environment, there's a set of rules that you need to abide by. Those rules are updated to say that we need to provide 35 units to the hectare. So without making that overly complex, to bring it back down for everyone's aware, 35 units means if we take the space equivalent to Crow Park, so we take Crow Park pitch, you would need to build 42 units on that area, just the pitch area itself, to comply with the rules. Now that can be very difficult to do so with houses or duplexes, so you're pushed towards an apartment build in that case, because you're just caught with space and sizes. But apartments, again, aren't viable in a lot of cases. We need the funds to fund them, or the money just won't be there to build them because costs are greater in apartments. But we're being pushed that way by government initiatives and schemes and Project Ireland 2040 and all the rules that come under that. So those guidelines are restricting in what we can actually deliver, because unless we meet that 35 units to the hectare, we can't build, and it's just not viable to do that. So that is causing a massive challenge to the industry. And then again, and no more, we were in a very difficult position in the last number of months and last number of years on construction costs. This is going to get worse, but where we were, people worry, or people ask the question, why can't we build houses cheaper? Well, I suppose what I get out to the listeners today would be that the construction cost, the actual bricks and mortar side of a house, and the cost that goes into your average house price is only 46% of what it costs to deliver a house. So your bricks and mortar, the hard cost, they're only 46%. It's the taxes, the VAT, the contributions, the levies, the utility charges. That makes up 54% of what it takes to deliver a house. So that's
do you feel that the government have done enough to counter that?
Well, I think there's more will need to be done. And this is, I suppose, before we step on to, I suppose, down the line today, we'll be looking at, what can be done. But that is an area that is going to need to be looked at in greater detail. Now, the complexity of that and the challenge with that is, I suppose, if we look at that, directly or indirectly, currently the state have a take in each house of about 37% from those levies and tax and contributions. Now that's very important because it's money into the exchequer. It funds a lot of other things, and that would have part funded, I suppose, the planning authorities, part funded the social initiatives and schemes that we would have sought for, and Ireland has a need for, along with other elements. But as long as that take is so high at current, it makes, I suppose, the ability to deliver more units very challenging, I suppose, as it currently stands.
I suppose what can we do to ensure builders and developers can continue to invest in building homes? And I suppose is that the answer? We create stimulus, we keep from top down. I suppose we keep investing and we keep incentivising. Is that the answer?
Well, I suppose on two fronts. Maybe first thing, the best thing we could do in a lot of cases. If you had asked me the question 3 months ago, what was the best thing we could have done, I would have said, let's leave it alone for a while. Let's let the policies that are currently in place embed in, and let the industry react, because we have a high number of new regulations and policies that come into Ireland nearly on a every month or bi-monthly basis, and it's very difficult for the industry to keep up and adapt and get efficiencies on the back of that. So on the policy and introduction of new regulations, I would have said let's hold firm for a year or so and let the industry adapt to that. For the stimulus side of things, earlier on we spoke about the inability of the consumer to be able to purchase. So it's not about, I think, what the industry can have done for it. It's about what can be done for the consumer. How do we help the consumer to put them into a position that they can buy a house? And a house is a vital need and a right of all the public. So what can we do to help them? One very important scheme or initiative that could be looked at, and we've advocated for this over the last number of years and months, would be to look at a shared equity scheme. What that does is that gives, basically, it's a state loan in effect that enables the consumer to get onto the property ladder. That it's a loan and not a grant, and then that loan can be repaid over a period of time. So if you take your average house price, which is 380,000 in the Greater Dublin area, 325 outside, you could have anything up to maybe a state take of up to, say, 20-30% within that unit. That could be the difference of 80 to 90,000, which would put people in the position where they can now secure a mortgage, get onto the property ladder. As their circumstances increase for the better over the next number of years, that loan is repaid back as well, and they buy out the state take in effect. But it enables the consumer in the first instance.
James, there's a fair amount of information there I'll give you now. I suppose to sort of summarise, and it's your own opinion, I suppose no one really knows. How do you see this playing out?
I think logically we're going to see a further announcement, and timely where we're at now at the moment, we're likely to see an extension. We saw a 2-week initial close down of activity that will, I think without doubt, continue on and be announced very shortly, perhaps in the next number of hours, that we'll see a further lockdown period. As to say when we see recommence some activity, it's beyond my expertise to say when that will happen. What I do know is, I suppose, our own members will react and are ready to react as soon as that opportunity is given. But I think from the Irish Home Builders Association and our own members are very conscious of that we don't overstep the mark, and we're not looking to recommence before it's safe and reasonable to do so. There's a huge body of work that's been undertaken at the moment to put a set of procedures and an implementation framework of how we will recommence activity when it's safe to do so. What we do need to do is balance the infection rates and the low level of transmission against recommencing activity. But my point being, I suppose that activity will happen on a transitional phase basis. So we're not going to see a full return to activity. We might concentrate on social units, or it might be a concentration on units that are, snagged and ready for completion. That a low level of activity could deliver a lot of units to families in need who want to move in. And actually that could take them out of very dangerous situations at present. If we look at the homelessness, those that are on social lists, it could take them out of accommodation that might be at a higher risk. If we could just get in there, finish off those units in a short period of time, low density, low volumes of work, and enable those homes to be completed.
Yeah, it's there's a challenge for everybody. There's absolutely no doubt. I mean, the value in being a part of you guys now is where it's times like this where the real value shines through. I mean, if for people that are out there that aren't members for yourself, where can they go to find out a bit more about that, James?
Well, as I said earlier on, I suppose the CIF website, www.cif.ie, and all the associations there across all the sectors are referenced in that. All the housing is covered off under the umbrella of the Irish Home Builders Association. And then that obviously encompasses in all planning and development there. So simply log on through there, and everyone's contact details are there. Yeah, we're here to try and help and educate everyone at this time.
Yeah, no, we appreciate that, and we do appreciate coming on, because any little bits of snippets of information that we can get out to the guys in this time is very much appreciated. So James, listen, thanks very much for your time. We do appreciate it, and I hope you get back to some sort of normality soon.
Stay safe.
Thanks, James.